The desert heat didn't bother me as much as the silence in Rachel's voice. I'd been deployed before, twice to Iraq, once to Syria, but this time felt different. Not because of the mission. The mission was textbook: reconnaissance, extraction, defend a friendly outpost. What shook me was her smile. It wasn't absent. It was rehearsed. And Rachel never faked anything with me. I tried to ignore it, told myself I was just stressed, just overreading things. But deep down, I knew something was off. The kind of off you don't admit, because once you do, it breaks you. Before I left, she hugged me tighter than usual. Not longer, just tighter. Her words were soft but stiff. "Come back safe," she whispered. And then she looked at me like she was apologizing for something. I should have stopped and asked, but we're trained not to. We're taught to bottle, to bury, to keep marching. So I boarded the Chinook with a steel jaw and a pounding heart, pretending everything was still good at home. Pretending she was still mine. Pretending nothing had already shifted between us. That lie was my first wound on this mission. Major Cullen gave the briefing like he always did, calm, stern, calculated. But even he seemed different. Less formal. Less crisp. He didn't make eye contact with me, and when I raised a question about the extraction route, he brushed it off with a vague smirk. Cullen and I had worked together for over a year. He knew I never asked questions unless I saw holes. And this route had holes. "You worry too much, Staff Sergeant," he said, and moved on. The men looked at me, unsure whether to follow my instincts or the brass's orders. I nodded like I was fine, but I wasn't. Every time I opened my notebook, I found myself sketching little shapes, distractions, arrows leading nowhere. When I wasn't writing patrol schedules or mission notes, I was staring at Rachel's last selfie, her in our kitchen, wearing my hoodie. But then I remembered Cullen had visited our house once during a send-off dinner. He knew that hoodie. He complimented it. The moment passed in seconds, but the seed was planted. And once seeds of doubt sprout in a soldier's mind, they grow fast in the cracks left by absence. The unit moved out on day 3. Sandstorms made the trek brutal. My squad, Rodriguez, Bennett, Lynn, and Carter, was sharp, responsive, brothers in every sense. They trusted me, leaned on me. I carried them like I always did. But in the quiet moments, between gun checks and campfire silence, I felt myself withdrawing. Cullen gave me less face time, avoided private comms, and always had his satellite phone close. That wasn't like him. Something was happening behind the scenes, and I was too far away to do anything about it. The first letter I got from Rachel was brief. Just 2 lines. "Thinking of you. Stay strong." No heart. No joke. No warmth. I read it 5 times, as if more reads would somehow stretch the words. But they didn't. Rodriguez noticed the look on my face. He asked if everything was okay back home. I lied. Of course I lied. What else could I do? Tell him my marriage was fraying and I had no proof? That the woman I promised to come back to felt like a stranger already? That night, as the wind howled outside our camp and bullets from a distant skirmish echoed like thunder, I sat in my cot, staring at the stars. I remembered when Rachel and I used to sit on our porch in Texas, watching planes fly over, wondering which ones were military, which ones were coming home. I told her once, "No matter what happens out there, I'll always come back to you." And she said, "I'll always be here." But some oaths, I would soon learn, are only made to pass the time, not to stand the test of it. Something shifted in the air around Major Cullen. His voice still carried command, but his presence started to fade. It was like watching a man in uniform play a part, not live it. Orders came late. Debriefs were vague. He stopped using the main channels and favored encrypted messages only he had access to. I wasn't the only one who noticed. Lynn mentioned it during a supply check. "Boss seems distracted," he muttered, tightening a strap on his pack. I didn't respond, but the look I gave him said we were thinking the same thing. And thinking's dangerous out here. I tried reaching Rachel again. 3 times. No answer. No message. Nothing but silence. The military comms hub logged the pings as successful, but she didn't pick up. I made excuses. Time zone difference. Maybe she was asleep. Maybe she was mad about something stupid. Laundry left undone. A forgotten date. But deep down, that seed of suspicion was rooting deeper. A man knows when his woman's slipping away, even from 8,000 miles across the world, and especially when the one man she could be slipping toward was right in front of me, issuing orders like he hadn't already crossed the line. Then came the first red flag I couldn't ignore. Rodriguez pulled me aside during patrol rotation. "You know Cullen's been getting private deliveries from the chopper crew, right?" I blinked. That wasn't protocol. No personal packages on recon missions. Too risky. "What kind of deliveries?" I asked. Rodriguez shrugged. "Dunno. But every drop he signs for, he takes straight to his tent. Locked. No logs. No paper trail." I filed it away. Didn't act yet. I needed more. One wrong move against a superior, and I could be out, dishonorably. Or worse, labeled unstable. And God knows the Army protects its officers better than its soldiers. A week later, the storm came. Not the weather. This was the kind that comes in manila folders and encrypted codes. Lynn intercepted a stray signal during satellite diagnostics. It wasn't meant for us. Wasn't even labeled correctly. But it pinged our grid. The transmission was short. Just a series of image bytes, poorly encrypted. I cracked them that night, alone in the comms tent. The file opened slowly, pixel by pixel, under the dim light. And when the full image loaded, I stopped breathing. Rachel, in our kitchen, wearing the same hoodie. But Cullen was there too, behind her, shirtless, smiling. I didn't throw the laptop, didn't scream, didn't even blink. I just sat there, frozen, numb. I watched the image again, zoomed in to convince myself maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was someone else. But it was Cullen. His neck tattoo, barely visible, confirmed it. Rachel was laughing. The timestamp was from 5 days ago. While I was pinned down in a firefight on the southern ridge, they were playing house. In my house. My mind spun like a scope under pressure, zooming in and out of memories I didn't want to replay. All those odd pauses. All those missed calls. It all added up. I went on patrol the next morning like nothing happened. Smiled. Cracked jokes. Checked gear. But something inside me had fractured. Not just because of her betrayal, but because it came from the one man who was supposed to have my six. A commanding officer. A leader. He hadn't just taken my wife off. He'd stabbed me where no bullet ever could. Cullen tried to make small talk at briefing, but I cut him off with a salute and walked out. I didn't trust myself to speak. Because if I did, I wouldn't stop. And rage on the field leads to death. That night, Rodriguez found me sitting alone, sharpening my knife, not for use, just for focus. He leaned against a post and handed me a canteen. "You okay, Sarge?" he asked. I nodded. "Lie number 1. You sure?" he pressed. "You look like someone killed your dog and married your ex in the same week." I smirked. Something like that. He didn't push further. He didn't need to. Good soldiers know pain when they see it. I wanted to tell him everything. But this war wasn't his. It was mine. A personal one. And it wouldn't be one with bullets. I started gathering. Notes. Logs. Surveillance timestamps. Even small behavioral changes in Cullen. He was slipping. That was my edge. He thought distance made him untouchable. That I couldn't do anything from out here. But I wasn't just a soldier. I was a strategist. I knew how to wait. How to strike when the damage would echo. I stopped trying to reach Rachel. I stopped needing answers. I already had what I needed, proof, and a plan forming slowly in the back of my mind, like smoke curling before fire. The enemy wasn't just out there in the mountains anymore. He was in my command tent, smiling, breathing my air, wearing my rank like a badge of honor while he dismantled everything I'd built behind my back. But he forgot one thing about soldiers like me. We don't quit. And we don't forgive. Not when the betrayal comes from both the bed and the chain of command. I couldn't stop looking at the image, even though I tried. I deleted it from the encrypted laptop, wiped the memory, then burned the printed copy I made in the back of the comms tent. But it stayed with me, burned into my mind like a scar that wouldn't heal. Every time I blinked, I saw Cullen's smirk and Rachel's bare shoulders. My own kitchen had become the scene of my downfall. The coffee mug in her hand was mine. The countertop, the fridge, the wall art, we picked those things out together. Now they were props in someone else's private game. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was surgical. Cullen had carved out a piece of my life, like a thief wearing my face. And Rachel, she hadn't just fallen. She'd opened the door, welcomed him in. While I was sleeping in foxholes and dodging sniper fire, they were wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets I bought. The first wave of rage hit fast, like a gut punch, leaving me breathless. But the second wave was different. It was cold, calculated. I stopped thinking about how they did it. I started thinking about how I'd undo everything they thought they'd won. Cullen carried himself like nothing had changed. He still barked orders, still paced like a man in charge. But I watched him closer now, and the cracks were showing. He was late to briefings. He avoided long eye contact. And during drills, he stayed further back than usual. I don't know if he suspected I knew, but he started acting like he owed me a buffer. Like guilt had crept into his boots and made them heavier. Maybe it wasn't guilt. Maybe it was fear. Either way, he gave me space, and I used every inch of it to prepare. My squad didn't question why I got quieter. Rodriguez gave me more time alone, Lynn picked up extra shifts, and Carter covered my patrol once without asking. Soldiers understand silence better than anyone. They know some battles can't be fought out loud. Meanwhile, I contacted a JAG officer I trusted once during my last deployment. I encrypted the message using military-grade software and told him I needed advice. Hypothetically, I said, what would happen if a commanding officer compromised a subordinate's family through an affair during active duty? His reply came hours later. If it can be proven, it's grounds for court-martial, especially if the officer used military resources to enable it. That's when my focus sharpened into obsession. I began collecting everything: delivery logs, Cullen's call patterns, even guard shifts around the satellite link-up station. Rodriguez helped without asking questions. When I told him to grab timestamps on the chopper's unauthorized stops, he nodded and said, "Say no more." Loyalty like that is rare, and it gave me strength. The mission we were on hadn't changed, but the one inside my head had become clearer. I wasn't going to get loud. I wasn't going to throw punches. I was going to end Cullen where it hurt most: his reputation, his rank, his career. 3 days later, I received a physical letter from Rachel. I didn't want to open it, but I did. It was short, just a few lines scribbled in her neat handwriting. "I miss you. Things have been strange lately. I hope you're safe. We need to talk when you get home." No mention of Cullen. No apology. No explanation. Just vague breadcrumbs left like I'd never seen the truth with my own eyes. That letter didn't hurt. It hardened me. She wanted to pretend we could still have a conversation. That made it easier to stop being the man who once would have answered. The final piece came during a recon mission. Cullen slipped. He forgot to wipe the message history on the satellite phone. I accessed it during his absence and found a thread of texts. Her name wasn't on it, but the language was intimate. The timestamps matched perfectly with the dates of the images I'd received. One message from him read, "Missed you last night. Got another drop coming. Can't wait till I'm stateside." That was all I needed. He wasn't just playing house. He was building one behind my back. But he was about to watch it burn. When I returned to base that evening, I sent everything to the JAG contact. Images, logs, timestamps, messages. I encrypted them twice, wrote a full report, and signed it with my badge number and deployment code. Then I waited. I didn't speak to Cullen. I didn't look at Rachel's photo again. I just waited, and every second ticked by like a countdown, not to an explosion, but to a clean, sharp detonation of truth. I'd placed the pin. Now I'd watch the pieces fall. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of anger, but anticipation. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel helpless. I felt prepared. And when revenge is clean, strategic, and silent, it hits deeper than any bullet. When my emergency leave was approved, I didn't cheer or thank anyone. I just nodded, packed light, and boarded the first outbound flight with the calm of a man carrying a storm in his chest. No one asked why I was going home early. Not Cullen. Not command. Maybe they suspected, or maybe they didn't care. Either way, I didn't owe them answers. The only thing I carried was a classified file, tucked deep in my bag, ready to detonate a man's entire career. I didn't go home as a husband. I went back as a ghost. Landing in Texas felt surreal. It was mid-afternoon. Blue skies. Humid air. Familiar streets. But I wasn't the same man who left. My house, once a symbol of love and warmth, now looked like a museum of betrayal. I parked 3 blocks down. I didn't want her to hear the engine or feel the weight of my return too soon. As I approached, I noticed something I hadn't expected: laughter. Inside my home. A light chuckle, too deep to be hers. My hand instinctively clenched into a fist, but I forced it open. No confrontations. Not yet. I rang the doorbell instead of using my key. She opened the door slowly, as if expecting a package. When she saw me, the color drained from her face. "Mike," she breathed. Her voice cracked. She stepped back like she'd seen a ghost, and maybe she had. I didn't smile, didn't speak, just walked in. The man inside, thankfully, wasn't Cullen. Just a neighbor helping with her car, he claimed. I nodded, said thank you, and watched him scramble away like a rat that sensed fire behind the walls. Rachel stood in the hallway, arms folded. Defensive. She wasn't crying. That would have hurt more. "You didn't say you were coming back," she said. I ignored her and walked into the kitchen. The same counters. Same photos on the fridge. Except now, I saw the frame differently. In my head, I kept replacing myself with Cullen in every corner. Every chair. Every room. I felt contaminated by my own home. "Is there something you want to say?" I asked, turning slowly. Her eyes twitched. "What are you talking about?" The last string inside me snapped. "I saw the photo," I said flatly. "The one in this kitchen. With him." Her breath caught. "Mike, I can explain," but I cut her off. "No, you really can't. And even if you tried, I wouldn't believe a damn word." She stepped forward, eyes glassy now. It didn't mean anything. It was just, I laughed. Laughed so bitterly it echoed off the tiles. "Don't finish that sentence, Rachel. Don't insult me more than you already have." She reached out, but I stepped back. "How long?" I asked. "Was it before I left? During? Did you tell him you loved him in my bed? Or did you wait till after he unzipped the uniform he didn't earn?" She said nothing. Silence is loud when you know the truth. Her tears came too late to matter. I picked up my bag, walked upstairs, and packed what was mine. Pictures. Documents. Medals. My father's watch. Everything else could rot. On my way out, she said the most pathetic thing I'd ever heard. "He said you were distant. That you were always more loyal to your mission than your marriage." I paused, hand on the doorknob. I didn't even turn around. "I was fighting for this country while you were stripping for a man who gives speeches and hides when shots are fired. I was loyal. You were just convenient." Then I left. And that was the last time I ever stepped into that house. But it wasn't over. I went straight to the JAG office the next morning. My report had already triggered an internal investigation. Cullen had been flagged for multiple ethics violations tied to my case. Misuse of military resources. Inappropriate relationship with a subordinate spouse during deployment. Unauthorized contact through secure channels. The man was done, and he didn't even know it yet. I handed over the last piece. The satellite phone logs and photo timestamps. The officer looked up at me and nodded. "You did everything by the book, Sergeant. He'll face a hearing. And Rachel, well, that's between you and the lawyers." 3 days later, I got the call. Cullen had been pulled from command mid-mission. He was flown back under watch, stripped of his badge, and locked into a formal inquiry. It went public fast. Officers don't fall often. When they do, they crash hard. News of his affair broke in the military grapevine. His wife left him. His career was finished. And he never saw me coming. That was the best part. Rachel tried contacting me once after. I didn't answer, just like she didn't. I figured we were even. The bed stayed made most nights. Neatly tucked sheets. One pillow used. The other untouched. Some people called it loneliness. I called it clarity. After everything. After Rachel. After Cullen. After the long silence of betrayal. I found something better than comfort. I found control. Not over people. Not over fate. But over my own story. I decided who entered my life and who never got a second chance. And no one was ever going to lie to me in my own home again. I didn't date. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't. I wasn't the same man who once believed in forever at the altar. I believed in moments now, in earned trust, in quiet mornings and long walks with no words. The war had changed me, not just the ones fought overseas. The war that happened in my heart, the one I survived without medals or parades, just silence and scars. and the knowledge that I made it through without losing my soul. I kept the photo, the one from the satellite ping. Not for revenge, not for memories, but as a reminder. It sat in a locked drawer in a metal case with other things I never showed anyone. My discharge papers, my field notes, the knife I carried every mission. They were relics of a life I'd buried but never forgot. Sometimes I opened the box, stared at it all, and remembered who I used to be, who I fought to become, and what it cost me. Cullen never tried to contact me. He wouldn't dare. His dishonorable discharge made the rounds in military circles. His record followed him like a shadow. I didn't have to lift a finger again. The system took care of him. Slowly, bureaucratically, brutally. The same way it forgets the good ones, it punishes the bad ones. And Rachel? I heard she moved in with her sister for a while. Tried to rebuild. She remarried last I heard. That was fine. I didn't hate her anymore. Hating her meant she still lived in my head. I'd evicted her long ago. Every once in a while, I'd pass couples holding hands and feel a flicker of something, nostalgia maybe, or curiosity. But I never chased it. Love is a battlefield too, and I was tired of fighting wars where the enemy wore perfume and said, "I love you," before vanishing. I'd had enough of beautiful lies. I was more at peace sleeping alone than ever wondering again if someone beside me had someone else on their mind. I found joy in simpler things. Fixing up old watches, helping young vets navigate their own returns home. They called me sir or coach. Some of them had that same haunted look I once carried. I never told them my story unless they asked. But when they did, I told it the way I remembered it, not to teach them vengeance, but to teach them resilience. That sometimes, walking away is the strongest thing you'll ever do. Years passed. I changed cities again. New town, new walls, new silence. But one thing stayed the same, my bed. Still made, still mine. And in all those years, no one ever slept in it again. Not because I couldn't love, but because I learned to love something else more, peace. And if you asked me whether I won in the end, I'd tell you this: I survived both battlefields. The one overseas, and the one at home. The bed stayed made most nights. Neatly tucked sheets. One pillow used, the other untouched. Some people called it loneliness. I called it clarity. After everything, after Rachel, after Cullen, after the long silence of betrayal, I found something better than comfort. I found control, not over people, not over fate, but over my own story. I decided who entered my life and who never got a second chance. And no one was ever going to lie to me in my own home again. I didn't date. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't. I wasn't the same man who once believed in forever at the altar. I believed in moments now, in earned trust, in quiet mornings and long walks with no words. The war had changed me, not just the ones fought overseas. The war that happened in my heart, the one I survived without medals or parades, just silence and scars, and the knowledge that I made it through without losing my soul. I kept the photo, the one from the satellite ping. Not for revenge, not for memories, but as a reminder. It sat in a locked drawer in a metal case with other things I never showed anyone. My discharge papers, my field notes, the knife I carried every mission. They were relics of a life I'd buried but never forgot. Sometimes I opened the box, stared at it all, and remembered who I used to be, who I fought to become, and what it cost me. Cullen never tried to contact me. He wouldn't dare. His dishonorable discharge made the rounds in military circles. His record followed him like a shadow. I didn't have to lift a finger again. The system took care of him. Slowly, bureaucratically, brutally. The same way it forgets the good ones, it punishes the bad ones. And Rachel? I heard she moved in with her sister for a while. Tried to rebuild. She remarried last I heard. That was fine. I didn't hate her anymore. Hating her meant she still lived in my head. I'd evicted her long ago. Every once in a while, I'd pass couples holding hands and feel a flicker of something, nostalgia maybe, or curiosity. But I never chased it. Love is a battlefield too, and I was tired of fighting wars where the enemy wore perfume and said, "I love you," before vanishing. I'd had enough of beautiful lies. I was more at peace sleeping alone than ever wondering again if someone beside me had someone else on their mind. I found joy in simpler things. Fixing up old watches, helping young vets navigate their own returns home. They called me sir or coach. Some of them had that same haunted look I once carried. I never told them my story unless they asked. But when they did, I told it the way I remembered it, not to teach them vengeance, but to teach them resilience. That sometimes, walking away is the strongest thing you'll ever do. Years passed. I changed cities again. New town, new walls, new silence. But one thing stayed the same, my bed. Still made, still mine. And in all those years, no one ever slept in it again. Not because I couldn't love, but because I learned to love something else more, peace. And if you ask me whether I won in the end, I'd tell you this: I survived both battlefields, the one overseas and the one at home. If this story gripped you the way it did us, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? We read every comment. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is walking away with your peace intact.